Jodi Hildibrant likes to say that she is the mother of truth, but she's really the mother of distortion, and I can explain it to you with Vedic Astrology. So let's get into it. We can find out that Jodi Hildibrant, although she speaks about not living in distortion, she actually lives a life of distortion, especially when it comes to her career and her as a mother figure. So Jupiter, which is in her fourth house, represents truth. But if Jupiter is with negative or malefic planets, then that's going to distort the truth of Jupiter. Jodi Hildibrant has Pluto, K2, which is the south node of the moon, and Uranus in Uttara Falguni, which is a nakshatra that's in Leo. So basically in Virgo and Leo, these planets are with Jupiter in her chart. So Pluto represents change and transformation. But in mythology, Pluto was the god of the underworld, which some people might call hell. Okay? That's with her Jupiter that's in her fourth house. And it seems like from listening to her interviews, she literally created hell for families, for the children, for the husbands, ultimately the women, the mothers, the wives. She also has K2 with Jupiter, and K2 likes to separate things. So if K2 is with Jupiter, it can separate you from the truth. If K2 is in the fourth house, it can separate you from that nurturing, motherly nourishment that children need. And I feel like Jodi can do some of the deplorable things that she did, allegedly, to children because she's lacking that nurturing essence, that nurturing energy. And so it's easy to do horrible things if you don't have empathy. And I do think she's disconnected from that, because K2 is there in her fourth house that represents the home, that represents the mother. And K2 is with Jupiter that disconnects, so it can disconnect from the truth. So another thing is Uranus is with Jupiter. And Uranus, I want to word this correctly because it's my second time recording this. Uranus is in mythology the god who didn't allow his children to go on. He destroyed, I'll just say he destroyed his children. And I mean, some of you might see pictures of Kronos and what he did to his children so that he could hold on to his power and authority. And he did this out of fear and out of control. He destroyed his children. And this is what Jodi allegedly did with her niece, Jessie Hildibrant, and she allegedly with Ruby Frankie's children. Allegedly putting them in prisons. And I kind of talked about this in the last video, because her fourth lord, Mercury, is in the 12th house of prisons. And she already has Pluto in the fourth house, the god of hell, the underworld. This is what she was creating with her mental illness therapy, psychology. This is what she was doing. So this brings me to my next point. Jupiter rules two signs. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Jupiter rules Pisces. So wherever those zodiac signs are, they're going to carry the energy of Jupiter in her chart. So Jodi Hildibrant has Sagittarius in her 7th house of business and relationships. She's carrying that distorted truth into her business and relationships, where Sagittarius is. She also has Pisces, the other Jupiter ruled sign, in the 10th house of work environment. So she's bringing that distorted truth into her work environment. Now, her 10th house also has Chiron and Rahu, the north node of the moon there. Chiron is known as the wounded healer. So I see why she might be drawn to psychology, because in her work environment, because that's where Chiron would thrive there. But I feel like she has so many wounds that she needs to heal her own self, that all she knows how to do is wound more. Now, if some people say Chiron is the wounded healer because where you have wounds and you keep on working on them, you're able to help people who have the same wounds or the similar wounds that you have because you've worked on your wounds. Or it could be that they call it the wounded healer because you might have those wounds and it might be hard for you to deal with them, but it's easier for you to help other people with those wounds. But Jodi is unhealed, extremely still wounded, allegedly, and is passing those wounds on to other families and other generations through her work environment of psychology and dealing with people who have mental health challenges. Rahu being there in her 10th house adds to it, because Rahu is all about illusions and not seeing things for what they really are, and actually has a lot to do with obsession, being obsessed about something. This leads me to the last thing that I want to say. And this delusion, this distortion is in her business, it's in her relationships from the 7th house with Sagittarius there. It's in her work environment, but it's also in her home. It's also how she mothers people through distortion, through disconnect, through allegedly imprisonment. But the distortion was so obvious when I heard the story of Jodi Hildibrant, and she talked about how Jodi Hildibrant would tell her, and they use an example, if your room is clean, if you see your teenager or young adult start cleaning and organizing their room, then they are sexually active, or they're about to be sexually active. And I was just like, how do you make that jump? And then Jodi Hildibrant was talking about how she was telling her that she was masturbating with all the time, and just telling her that she was sexually active, and she didn't even know what all these things were. She was talking about corn. I'm not actual corn, but I don't want to say that word. She was saying she was watching that all the time. She was masturbating all the time. She was sexually active until she beat it into her head that even though she wasn't doing those things and didn't even actually know what some of those things actually were, she started to believe that she was actually doing those things because Jodi kept telling her that over and over and over and again. That's how the distortion is so evil. And how the distortion and the truth are so opposite from each other, but can look like each other. And it's so unfortunate. But learning about Jodi Hildibrant's chart and looking at different videos here on YouTube, you can see that Jodi likes to project what she's thinking onto other people. Her Mercury, which represents thoughts, your thoughts, what you're thinking about most of the time, is in the 12th house, or 12 houses away from her moon. Okay? That's where her Mercury is. And it's in Taurus, and I want to say it's in Rohini. And it's in Rohini or it's in Mixture. I have to look again. But that talks about family issues that could be incestuous in nature. Family issues that aren't right. Just aren't right. That's what those nakshatras can represent. But this being in the 12th house, that represents our private lives. That's where her Mercury is. Her mind, her thoughts are. Our private lives. Secret bed pleasures. This is where her mind is. Her Mercury is all the time. But she likes to put that on other people. The first thing she went into before family and couples psychology and counseling, it was addictions, which also is strong with Pisces and the 12th house. There's where those connections right there. That's where her mind is, addictions. So Jodi is a big projector. She thinks all these people around her are always doing something evil because allegedly it's in her heart, it's in her mind. Okay? So that's what I have for you. I want to talk more about why she does not like husbands and in the next video. All right? Enjoy your day.